Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Lounge. We have your host here, Yamin Fauzi. I am Round the World Man. Today, we want to talk to you about sanctioned citizenships. This is, of course, a challenging topic in 2025. A lot of people are experiencing sanctions in one way or another. Yamin, what do you have for us today on this topic of sanctioned citizenships?
Okay, I have to elaborate here what is considered a sanctioned citizenship, I think, in the first instance. So, sanctioned citizenships are, countries that are heavily sanctioned. These are usually almost always the same countries in the past 20 years, especially now. In the last 3 years, Russia and Belarus have been added to it because of the war in Ukraine. And then there is also other countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, Sudan often is also sanctioned, Myanmar, and a couple of others, sometimes Yemen. You could argue if it is sanctioned. Palestine is kind of sanctioned because it is not recognized by certain larger countries, so you could argue this one as well. And so what these countries usually face is that or North Korea is also a very famous example. So what these countries usually face is that they have problems getting, first of all, banking access. They are heavily capitally controlled restrictions. So if they want to move capital out of the countries, it's practically impossible. Or even their currency is hyperinflated or something like this. So there's many reasons why they are sanctioned, but the problem is that it has serious consequences for their global mobility, financial mobility, and legacy mobility or legacy planning as well. I can give you here an example of.
And I want to ask. I want to ask a question while you're pulling that up. Who's in charge of these sanctions? As far as how is it decided upon? Is there such a thing as counter sanctions? I guess who is it actually supposed to be hurting? Those are a lot of questions there, but those are the things that I think are really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, before I'm gonna, I just spoiled the graphics here, which I'm gonna explain later. But so yeah, that's a good question. So usually, I mean, it's always the usual suspects that sanction these countries. It's the United States, the World Trade Organization, the OECD, or some other sort of supranational organization or bloc that is sanctioning a certain country for its action or behavior in order to have some change in the regime. For example, in Iran, it's usually with the Islamic Republic the problem, the Ayatollah, that the West does want to sanction. They want to sanction it so they can have some sort of a regime change. Same with North Korea. Afghanistan also, because it's just simply not recognized the interim Taliban government. You can argue if these sanctions are fair or not. That's a different topic as usual, but that's just the reality of what they do. They just, at the end of the day, it's regime change that they want, or some sort of behavioral change in line with international practices, in line with international standards, or Western standards, because a lot of countries, they don't care about these sanctions, So when I'm talking about sanctioned countries, most of the times it's the West sanctioning some of these countries. The collective West, as in North America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and perhaps some Asian countries as well, like Japan, are usually these type of countries that sanction it. Most of the other countries, they simply don't care. For example, I'm, as you know, or if you don't know, I'm a dual Swiss-Moroccan national. So that means in Switzerland, a lot of the sanctions are applied, when it comes to banking. For example, North Korea is sanctioned, like citizens from North Korea are sanctioned, or from Myanmar, sanctions to open a bank account in Switzerland. But let's say, or people from Russia, if they want to open a bank account in Switzerland, they are sanctioned, but they're not sanctioned in Morocco, for example. They can freely travel there without any problems. They can open bank accounts if they're residents of Morocco. They can pay the money, so it's not sanctioned.
So this one of the things that I'm hearing here in between the lines of this very good answer is that the regular people on like the streets or the regular people on the ground in many situations are the ones that are kind of experiencing the challenges, but it's at the higher level that somebody wants there to be something different, some different policy or program or trade or banking or something. But it's like the people on the street are the ones that typically get affected the most by it, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, the everyday citizens are affected of it. Citizens from Russia are affected, from Belarus, from other countries, and you can see that it makes life a lot difficult. For example, there was a lot of content creators in Russia that they get money via PayPal or something, but now they suddenly cannot get their funds from PayPal or from other means. They cannot no longer have access to I think there was the Swift network, which so they cannot transfer money to European accounts, even if they already have opened one and it's perhaps not even blocked. So they're very restricted in lots of ways. And today I want to talk about how we can navigate if you're one of these heavily sanctioned citizens. And so I keep telling people, also in the Schengen episode that we have recorded a couple of weeks earlier, the West is not the only place on the planet. If you're a Russian, Belarusian citizen, or North Korean citizen, Myanmar, Sudan, Afghanistan, Iran, there's plenty of countries that welcome you. They do not discriminate you based on the citizenship that you have. You might be, for many of these countries, you can open a company, for example, in Hong Kong. Hong Kong doesn't exclude many of these countries. You can open bank accounts in Hong Kong. They're very neutral on that regard as well. The United Arab Emirates also doesn't sanction many of the countries that are on the Western sanction list. And this has been controversial topic in the West. How the citizens are bypassing the Western sanctions. With some sort of weird stuff when money is coming into the UAE and then it gets out to Russia or vice versa to Europe and the US. Different topic. I'm not going to judge here because I think everybody has the chance to prove themselves as or to be have a respectful life. And if you're affected with it, sometimes it's you can't choose where you're born. So if you're a Russian citizen, Belarus or whatever, it's just the way it is. You're born with it. Maybe you approve of what the government says, maybe you don't approve. It doesn't even matter if you approve or not. You're affected at the end of the day. That's the reality, and there are ways to navigate this. So what are the ways? So first of all, there is if you can claim a second citizenship by your ancestry or buy a second citizenship with a CPI program, you can bypass that. However, the sanctions go even to that regard, and this is why I'm going to show you the graph here from IMI Daily here, which is the banned nationalities. So on top of here you see all of the countries that offer citizenship by investment. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's the Caribbean 5 countries, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Nevis, and St. Lucia. Malta doesn't offer the program anymore, so this is a little bit outdated. Turkey, Vanuatu, Egypt, Jordan, Cambodia, Nauru, and El Salvador. So as you can see, if you are from Belarus, there's many countries that you can no longer get a second citizenship, right? So this includes all of the Caribbean, Malta, and Nauru. However, as a Belarusian or Russian citizen, you can get Turkey citizenship. You can get Vanuatu, Egypt, Jordan, Cambodia, and El Salvador, which is, by the way, a fantastic passport. So there's still ways. It's limited, but there's still ways. if you have enough capital, then getting a second citizenship can bypass some of these sanctions, because once you have acquired a second citizenship, you can, for example, travel with the other one, or you can open bank accounts with the other one, because Turkish citizens are not sanctioned to open bank accounts in the EU, for example, or in Switzerland, or in the United States.
And this list here that you're showing is just for the investment options. It doesn't show naturalization options, which is of course a entirely different way to gain an additional citizenship. So this is just for investment purposes. So the list is actually pretty short here, and Malta's of course program is now ended, but. Please continue. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that this is not showing naturalization options.
Also, Venezuela is also a great example because it's also heavily sanctioned by the US, for example. But you can, except with Malta, which no longer exists, you can get a citizenship in all of the other countries by investment if you have the funds available. So Yemen also, there is plenty of options here as well. So you can still upgrade with the limited ways. I think right now Belarus and Russia are the most sanctioned in that regard. But you can see also Iran has some problems here as well to get a second citizenship. Israel is also sometimes sanctioned, mostly by the Muslim and Arab countries. If you are an Israeli citizen, you cannot travel to most of the Muslim world. That includes also places, for example, like Malaysia. Even if you are an Israeli Arab, for example, you hold the Israeli citizenship by birth, and you are an Arab, you cannot visit this country, because you hold the Israeli citizenship. So this also a very interesting case to talk about. So as you can see, you can still navigate in that regard. Also, when it comes to banking options, for example, Venezuelans, their currency is now considered what I call a shitcoin because of the hyperinflation. But you might want to have money in a safe haven. So the United States perhaps you're sanctioned from that country, so you cannot, get your money from Venezuela to the United States. But there is Panama next door. You can open Panama bank accounts. You can invest in Panama. You can incorporate a business in Panama, and then you can trade in US dollars as a Panamanian company. So that also is a way how to navigate sanctions in that regard. Because you're not operating as a Venezuelan company, but as a Panamanian company that can trade in US dollars. You can see the flag here. So Panama is a fantastic option when it comes to that regard. And so these are all like mechanisms how you can bypass this. There's workarounds with second citizenship that usually give you more travel freedom as well. And also the perceived reception is better. For example, let's say you are an Israeli citizen. Israelis are, let's be honest, they are not the most welcomed people right now, for different reasons. You can approve, disapprove it, entirely different conversation. I'm just objectively stating how it is as of now. So a second citizenship also gives, even though Israel is not sanctioned except from the Arab countries and Muslim countries, the perception is not good in most countries. So you might want to switch over with a second citizenship that you acquire or naturalize with, and then travel with this instead, and so your perception also gets better once you travel. I mean, obviously people will see if you have a specific name, perhaps they will have some assumptions on that. Again, another topic, but still it gives you the leverage, to go into other countries, bypassing the sanctions. So that's
and that's a good point that you brought up there, which is of course outside the scope of this like sanctioned citizenship stuff. But yeah, there is this like discrimination, like you said, whether you agree with what's happening in certain parts of the world or don't agree or are kind of indifferent to it. there is this discrimination based on names. Here we have a perfect example. Yamin Fauzi, highly intelligent, hardworking, father, husband, dedicated, but he doesn't have maybe what would be considered the traditional maybe Swiss name. But he's been a Swiss citizen his entire life. I don't know if you've ever experienced any sort of subtle or blatant discrimination, but it's probably possible that you have. And in some cases, people, I do believe there's a way that people that have gained a second citizenship, whether it's through naturalization or an investment program, a lot of times I think they end up legally changing their name in the country that they become an additional citizen, simply because to maybe to navigate some of these discrimination things that have come up. So I think it's a pretty common practice.
Well, common is maybe a little bit overstated, I would say, but some people have actually, and you can actually legally change your name in the new country in certain legislation laws. Of course, you can.
Right. Every country has their own laws regarding name changes. Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Not every country allows it, but there are countries that allow it. In their host countries to legally change your name. So that will add out the layer of discrimination based on the name. Right. I'm fortunate enough to tell you that I've never been discriminated. I don't think I've ever even gotten weird looks. It's a little bit off topic here, but
sure. I was just saying, it seemed within the scope of possibility is what I was getting at.
Yeah. I mean, it's Switzerland. People, they recognize that I am not 100% Swiss. I'm 50% Swiss by ethnicity, but so yeah, it's mostly in Switzerland. But outside of Switzerland, it's funny. I always get accepted whatever I state. When I go to the US, I'm the Swiss guy. When I go to Malaysia, I tell the people I'm Moroccan. So
sure.
They accept it. It's fine, But for some people, it's a very real challenge that they are getting discriminated based on their name, based on their appearance, or their citizenship, and so so that's another way of sanction. How I say that by perception, and what you perceive is usually. Is a reality. That's just how the place works, and that's what it is. But there are ways to navigate it. I keep telling people the West is not the only place on the planet. There's Southeast Asia, there's East Asia. It's such a big world. There's always a place for everybody. Even in the West, there's also other maybe. What also, this is also a good thing about, people from Africa, when they invest in a Caribbean citizenship, for example, they get an instant upgrade, again, you can argue about it if it's fair or not, but let's say you are from Nigeria, if you invest into a citizenship program from the Caribbean, for example, for St. Kitts or Dominica, and then you go to a Western country and then say, okay, well, I'm from St. Kitts. It's an entire different perception than when you say that you're from Nigeria, just how it is, because people have negative connotations associated with Nigeria rather than St. Kitts and Nevis or Dominica, So it gives a huge upgrade, and I think that's also a very important topic to talk about. It's discrimination, based on your original, on your race. That's another way of sanction, I would say, because once you have a St. Kitts passport, you no longer have to apply for visas. For the Schengen region, you can apply easier to other countries, just by changing the passports, and and also if you have companies in Hong Kong or Panama, Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, it's even in business terms, you're less sanctioned or less discriminated, as instead if you say that you have your company based in Sierra Leone or Nigeria, for example. This is the reality, and but there's still, again, a place for everybody on this planet, and always a way to circumvent these sanctions.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great primer here Do you have anything else for us on this topic of the kind of the sanctioned citizenships?
Yeah, I think that's all I can say.
I think that's a good
about
primer
this,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good primer. It will definitely introduce our newer viewers to this topic because, again, the investment migration side of things really does give people additional options, especially if they have one of these more sanctioned citizenships. So I think that's another great episode here. Yamin Fauzi, thank you so much for joining us on the Sovereign Lounge.
Thank you guys for joining.
Cheers.